What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, gonna talk about one of the biggest fights that could take place this year. Actually, could it be one of the biggest fights to have taken place in the heavyweight division in over 10 years, and the biggest fight in boxing to happen since, if it was actually to manifest, since Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, in my opinion. And that would be Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. Now, there were some reports came out. Well, not a report, actually, a video that came out where Anthony Joshua said that he wanted Deontay Wilder next, and now there's another report that came out where Eddie Hearn says he thinks it will be next. Now, I've said many times that I do I do read what people say pretty closely, and I want it to be next, and I think it will be next. I want it next. That's the fight that I'm training for next. And it's 95% there. We're just going over the last details. I think it'll be next. All of those type of things are not the same thing as it will happen next. And we've agreed to fight. The fight's going to be on this date. But that said, I'm trying to take a more positive tone towards this fight, in out of respect for Anthony Joshua having at least started to act like he wants it. So there's an article that came out this morning where Eddie Hearn talks about it, talks about the progress of it, and I'm gonna go through that with you, and then give me my thoughts on it, and just hoping that these people are actually working towards this fight happening. There are some things said by Hasim Rahman as well that made me think, that people see some things similar to how I see them. But anyway, before I do that, I want to thank everybody that attended the live stream. Definitely trying to have more and more real-time conversations with people on live stream. And the best way to know about that is to subscribe and hit the subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of them. And I will, because I don't do them at a regularly scheduled time, but we always have a couple hundred really very avid, but respectful and mature boxing fans that are in there. So I certainly hope that you would accept my invitation to attend. Also, I want to thank everybody that has donated in the Super Chat and Venmo and Patreon. Thank you guys very, very much for doing that. Because like I said, you can like what I have to say, dislike what I have to say. That's fine and dandy, but I'm going to give you my opinion because I'm trying to raise funds to help these young athletes and who have an opportunity to go to college or have an opportunity to go to trade school or whatever they want to do that keep these kids out of the streets, keeps them a little bit, keeps them a couple inches further away from the gangs, though you really can't get them all the way away from that because it's a lot of family members and things that are involved or, connected with that. So the best you can do, I do believe, is keep them busy and give an opportunity to to go a path where they can be a productive productive member of society, productive and constructive member of society. And I think that that's a lot easier to do than some people think, just as long as you provide kids with a path to go that way and something to keep them busy and keep their minds positive. Anyway, so thank you guys. When you donate to the channel and you watch the videos and all that it really does help me support and do that. So anyway, let me get on to the into this article and we'll discuss it. Yeah, Hearn, Anthony Joshua Wilder talks ongoing. I think it will be next. Eddie Hearn, promoter for IBF, IBO, WBA, WBO heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua, 21-0 with 20 KOs, has continued his negotiations to finalize a potential unification bout with WBC champion Deontay Wilder, who's 40-0 with 39 KOs. The talks became more serious after Wilder and his team sent over a guaranteed offer of $50 million to Joshua to stage the fight. Joshua, who already has 3 belts, won a 12-round decision over Joseph Parker in March to pick up the WBO title. Hearn is planning to meet with Joshua later this week to discuss things further. The major thing for AJ is planning his next fight. I was just on the phone with him a minute ago. We're meeting up this week. Hearn told Talk Sports Fight Night podcast. We have to start making some decisions. We know the fights that are on the table. Conversations are ongoing with Wilder. AJ really wants the fight in the UK next, but obviously it's a big opportunity to fight Wilder in America, and it's something we are considering strongly. It's just a case, really, of taking our time and making the right decisions. We know we got a real opportunity to try and become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and he would love to do it in the UK, but we have an offer that is of interest to us. If a deal is reached, the contest will take place in the fall. Hearn indicated that a UK location would send the contest to a date in September, and the venue in the United States would send the fight to a date in November. The British promoter believes the contest is going to happen with WBA mandatory challenger Alexander Povetkin already set down as Joshua's backup plan. We have to explore it more, which we have been doing over the last week or so. The communication is back and forth, which is good news. So we're talking regularly. They're answering our questions now, and I'm hopeful that fight can get over the line, Hearn said. If it is in the UK, it will be in September, or if it is in Vegas or New York, it will probably be more like November. I think it will be his next one. Well, that's good to say now on several levels, because if nothing else, we can get rid of all these conversations that are still getting posted on other videos. So I hope people hear this, that the money being there is not an issue. He said that it's a huge opportunity to fight in the U.S. Consequently, the guaranteed money, the $50 million that they talked about, is real and it's there. Okay? So the Alabama kid didn't just make it up, right? Shelly Finkel didn't make it up. Al Heyman didn't make it up. That issue is settled. And we can clearly see that the issue, at least the issue that Eddie Hearn is speaking most directly on, as far as the conversations for this fight, is the location. Whether it's going to be in the United States or whether or not it's going to be in the UK. Now, the fact is, this is my opinion, and I'm not, like I said, this is not an Eddie Hearn. This is not my usual Eddie Hearn. It's because I don't see Eddie Hearn telling any fibs in this from what I've seen, right? I don't think this is any different. I don't think that there's anything underhanded or dishonest going on in these statements, right? The conversations are ongoing, which means they're talking, right? So it's not a situation where somebody turned down an offer and the offer is no longer good after 24 hours, right? It's still going on. And the sticking point for Anthony Joshua's team is he's going to want the fight to be in the UK. Deontay Wilder's wanting it to be in the United States. If it's a $50 million guarantee, that is a very solid reason for Deontay Wilder's team to want the fight in the United States, because they have to make their money. So there's a lot of conversations about who the A side is of the fight, right? Who the B side of the fight. If you're the A side, that means you get to dictate what's going on. However, when somebody is offering the money and is taking the risk, then that person's risk have to be covered before anything else. So if Anthony Joshua was going to get $50 million, at least this is my take, and I'm sure that this is the take of Anthony Joshua's team. I mean, of Deontay Wilder's team. If Deontay Wilder's teams put $50 million in escrow, they have to say, look, we've got to find a way. We have to ensure or make things, set the fight in a way where it's most likely that we will make our money and we will not lose money. It's hard to believe that in a fight in the UK, that A fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder will generate enough where it's going to be able to pay Anthony Joshua a guaranteed 36 million pounds or whatever that is, and it still be a viable, profitable engagement. Because even if you fill out a 90,000 seat arena, you're going to do about 8 million pounds, maybe just stretch it to 9 million pounds in the gate. At a million and a half pay-per-view, the whole ecosystem of that fight might wind up being 40 million pounds, which after Anthony Joshua's guaranteed money would leave 6 million pounds or $12 million for the rest of the costs. And that's if the fight does incredibly, because it takes out of the equation the American pay-per-view. If American pay-per-view can do, they're estimating 600,000, 700,000 pay-per-view and a gate in Vegas of $30 million, and you have the pay-per-view in the UK, that is enough for it to be $100 million fight, and for Anthony Joshua, for them to pay that amount of money to that side and still make it a profitable engagement where they can, whoever it is that put that money up, they can pay whatever interest they have on it, or whatever was in whatever the financing fees, whatever the bank fees associated with that are. They can afford to pay that. They can afford to pay themselves. Deontay Wilder can walk away with a good amount of money, right? They can afford to promote the fight and do all those things. And so when you're putting that risk, when you're taking that risk, and Anthony Joshua's risk is taken away, that's why, for the sake of the fight, for being able to cover your risk, they would want the fight to be in the United States. If that fight goes to the UK, I doubt very much that the $50 million guarantee stays there, because they have to say we can't guarantee it because we won't know what it can't be on US pay-per-view. US pay-per-view, if they do US pay-per-view at 5:00 in the afternoon, say 6:00 in the afternoon, Central Time, right? That's 4 in the afternoon on the East Coast, right? That's 4:00 in the afternoon on the East Coast on a Saturday. That's not going to work. Now, I do find something interesting in where they're saying these two dates, right? Because Eddie Hearn is interested, said, if it's in the UK, it'll be in September. And if it's in September, the second week of September is the biggest date in boxing. And more than likely, that's going to be when Canelo Alvarez fights Gennady Golovkin. So, on HBO. And then if it's in United States, it'll probably have to be in New York. If it's in Vegas or New York, more likely it'll be in November. I think that has to do with the fact that at least one of the factors in that is that there's the two biggest weekends in boxing in the United States are the second week of May, or the first week of May and the second week of September. Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day. Those are typically the two biggest dates. Many of the biggest fights in boxing, definitely the ones in the last several years, have all been on those dates. The Canelo Alvarez fights, the Oscar De La Hoya fights, the Floyd Mayweather Jr. fights. Floyd Mayweather Jr. was stuck on September. And he would try his best to fight somebody who was Mexican or somebody who had a Spanish name, and could speak Spanish and help sell to that market. So I think that's the rationale behind the fight. Him saying it's either going to be in September or it's going to be in November. Now, the other thing that I think might be holding this up, and I'm going to go through this quote again, and I do believe this is Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing's interest in signing Deontay Wilder. And just to go through what he said, I'm going to quote him. I think I've always thought that was a big stick for Eddie Hearn's point of view and the point of view of a promoter, right? That the biggest issue is Deontay Wilder signing with him. Because if Deontay Wilder signs with Eddie Hearn, it's a win-win for him. And honestly, it really doesn't matter who loses if if he's Deontay Wilder's promoter, because either way, he keeps all four belts in house, and he's the promoter of the biggest, most influential heavyweight in the world, regardless of who wins or who loses. Right. So the most important. So if Deontay Wilder was to sign with him, and this is an age old negotiation chip for promoters, actually it's the value of having a stable, right? Which is like, hey, you can fight whoever fights, I'm gonna get paid. Whoever loses, I still have the belts. You know what I mean? I still have the belt as a negotiating chip, and I have both fighters as a negotiation chip. So that, I think, is what would really what would really solidify the fight most easy is if Deontay Wilder said, hey, I'm going to sign with Eddie Hearn. Well, how many fights you going to sign with me, man? Oh, I'll sign UK. I guarantee you 2 fights, right? But if he signs, that's what happened with Luis Ortiz, right? When Luis Ortiz signed with Eddie Hearn, thinking, hey, man, if I sign with Eddie Hearn, that'll allow me to get a fight with Anthony Joshua. That'll allow me to get title fights. And Eddie Hearn just sat on him, right? Because he was like, well, he put him in. I think he put him in 2 fights within, like a week apart or something, like some real short time frame. I think he might have fought a couple, 3 times in 2 months, right? So he made Eddie some money real quick, and then Eddie was about to sit him on the bench, like, nah, man, you're not getting in here you're not getting this fight. Sorry. So Luis Ortiz had to leave and wind up getting screwed out of that. But this is what Eddie Hearn had to say. Look at Deontay Wilder. It's embarrassing. He's sitting on Instagram filming himself, trying to build his profile off of Anthony Joshua's name. They need help. These guys, the Charlo brothers, Wilder, all sorts of people, when they come in full, when they come here in full starting in September, these guys are all on the radio of Matchroom USA. For fighters, it's open season. Any fighter out there, any world-class fighter that doesn't have a promotional contract, that feels like they're not getting enough activity and wants to be properly promoted, wants to be involved in big fights, we're here, and there's going to be a lot of interesting conversations going on over the next few weeks. We need to bring the existing world championships on a platform as well, and the guys on the verge of shots. It's going to be a massive recruitment process over the next 2-3 months. Championship fighters need to box 3 times a year, and we can do. Now, most of that obviously speaks to the recruitment of younger fighters, but as far as what's going to get the Matchroom brand, uh, the the biggest growth are the existing fighters, the existing championship fighters. So, like I said, I think that is going to be that if this fight was going to get made, the best way or the easiest way for Deontay Wilder to get this fight made is to sell his soul to Eddie Hearn. So he gets paid on either side, but I don't think that's going to happen. That doesn't make sense for guys that are at the level of Deontay Wilder, where they need a promoter. I don't think that they need a promoter, and honestly, I don't think that right now Deontay Wilder's fighting 2 times a year. Has been pretty consistently fighting 2 times a year. He's not a young heavyweight, and not all heavyweights need to fight three times a year, 2 times a year, 3 times a year. That from what I can see, that's a good thing. But the more money that you make, and the older you get, the less you need to fight. And so fighters like Floyd Mayweather Jr. did a good amount of time just fighting 1 time a year. When they had enough money to do so, right? Now, I'm not a big fan of it. As a boxing fan, I want to see people fight more often, but, it is what it is, man. But it's my gut feeling tells me that all this talk about all those little words that that are used, like, I think it might be, and I'm hoping that it will be, things like that. that's not saying that that is going to be the case. You know what I mean? So right now I'm still kind of like, you know, I guess I'm about 80-20 that the fight's going to happen next. Or rather, excuse me, I'm about 70-30 that the fight is not going to happen next for Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. But, I'm 95-5 that the fight will happen eventually. It just might be a little later than when I want to see it. But, it is what it is. But at the very least, we get to get past a lot of these conversations that were taking place before about, you know, show me the money, show me the contract, show me all that stuff. All that stuff is now out the window because that's not what Eddie Hearn is asking for. But I still get comments from videos, that I did a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that still, where people still reply to that, right? So hopefully some of the UK guys will, not the good fans, not the serious ones, but you guys, that you guys will get your new Eddie Hearn talking points, up to date, and stop using the old Eddie Hearn talking points so that you can come up with another excuse for why this fight doesn't need to happen. Like Deontay Wilder needs to sign with a promoter so he can get 2-3 fights a year, or however you're going to twist twist this to suit your purposes. And honestly, man, I just believe a lot of you guys really don't want that fight because, like Asim Rahman Jr. said, just the way that these guys are looking as far as their confidence and the desire to win the fight, that's leaning towards Deontay Wilder, who really is the one that's pushing and talking about he no doubt about it wants that fight next. So anyway, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens. And with that, I'm out. Peace.